One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode. I love it when we have recurring guests on the show, but even more so when they have something really big to celebrate. I'm so excited because today I'm sitting down with my good friend, Amy Connell, and we're talking about the recent launch of her book, Your Worthy Body. We're going to really talk about how her podcast played a really big role in her creating this book, what inspired her to write this book right now. And we're also going to go into some little marketing nerdiness and all the things when it comes to being a writer, being a podcaster, and just creating content that you feel really passionate about. So I hope that you enjoy my conversation with Amy Connell. Welcome to the Profit Podcast, where we teach entrepreneurs how to start, launch, and market their podcast. I'm your host, Crystal Profit, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today, because if you've been trying to figure out the world of podcasting, think of this show as the time-saving shortcut you've been looking for. So let's get right to it, shall we? All right, Profit Podcast listeners, I'm so excited to welcome back one of our favorite guests, Amy Connell. Thank you so much for being here today, Amy.
I'm thrilled. It's always so fun to see your face, even if it's over the screen, and chat with you, Crystal. I'm super excited to be here.
Well, we are celebrating something really big today because when we are recording this, your book has just launched. Your book is officially out into the world, and we are going to talk about it. But I have to ask, how does it feel? How does it feel to have your book out there? It's published.
It feels good. I am practicing the concept of celebrating and receiving congratulations. But no, it feels really good and really surreal. It's funny. I have gotten like 3 screenshots from 3 separate people who have gone into Amazon and it has automatically populated. So they'll put in like "you're worthy" and then it'll auto populate body Amy Connell. And like 3 different people have been like, this is so cool. So that's kind of fun to see, like, oh, okay, I'm actually alive and my book is alive according to Amazon. So these are good steps.
These are all good things.
Yeah.
Well, if there's somebody that's listening today and they haven't listened to your previous interviews that you've done here on the Prophet Podcast, can you give us just a quick snapshot of who you are, what your podcast journey has looked like, and just a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. My name, like we said, is Amy Connell. I like to tell people that I'm a personal trainer who wants you to take a day off and a nutrition coach who wants you to enjoy dessert. So everything that I do is a little countercultural to what we have heard in diet culture and the health and fitness industry. I've been a fitness professional for about 16 years. And really, I have just this burning passion for helping women, helping equip women with simple and grace-filled ways to take care of themselves. My community is women who are just doing the best that they can. And I think a lot of us feel this way, but when we're doing that and then we have a bad day or something doesn't go as planned, or we look around and we're like, it's just not measuring up. And there's a lot of health and fitness, I'm going to use this in quotes, rules that people feel like they need to abide by. So my book takes 22 of those rules and breaks them using exercise science, nutrition science, and it's all done through a lens of faith. So I'm also host of the Graced Health podcast, and you and your show, Crystal, have really helped guide me in a lot of the things that I have done. And we really explore just simple and grace-filled ways of taking care of ourselves. And we really do we cover mental health, spiritual health, physical health, and just really kind of dig into a lot of different conversations about that with the overarching theme of grace and that it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yes, this is so good. And it makes my heart so happy because I can think back to, so Amy and I have known each other for a while now. I mean, I'm like, has it been 2 years? Has it been, I mean, I feel like it's been forever at this point because we've exchanged so many different like voice messages and emails, and we've had lunch in person. We've gone to a conference together. Like we have just been so involved in each other's journey. And I feel like this is such a big moment for you. So I love that you said you're trying to celebrate this book happening, because I remember when you said, I don't know exactly where my podcast is going to go or where it's going to take me, but I know I want to write a book. That was something that you declared, like you put it out into the world. And now here we are, like you have a book and you've published it. So I just want to again say congratulations, because I think it's so amazing. But for someone that's listening right now and they're like, oh, that's my dream. Like Amy's living my dream. I want to have a book published. I want to create this thing. Like, what were some of the things that you have done along your journey that have really gotten you to have the self-confidence to take all your experience, your different stories that you have as a health professional, and turn that into a book?
Oh boy, that's a loaded question and a really good one. I think as far as the confidence thing goes, it has just been a process of recognizing that, as someone who reads her Bible, there's a scripture that says, there's nothing new under the sun. So there's all kinds of different things, but we all have our own way of saying it, and we all have our own voice, whether or not it's our voice through our ears with our podcast, or if it's our voice in our writing. And I think just really leaning into saying, you know what I'm saying it's not earth shattering. It's not like rocket science, but it's something that has been my journey, because the whole impetus of this book were rules that I've been trying to live by and, or that I have in the past. And just recognizing that as I was having conversations with people, as I was writing, I used to blog more. Really, I don't really blog anymore, but not that there's anything wrong with it. I just don't. I spend my time doing podcasting. But as I've have had these interactions with my community, I've realized that there's something in the way that I'm saying it resonates with them, and that was really that's really kind of what gives me the confidence to just take the next step and to, maybe say something that I'm like, I don't know if this is going to go over well. And I don't know how people are going to respond to this, but just knowing that it's authentic to who I am and putting it out there. And for the most part, it's received well. There'll be a day that I get canceled by something for someone, whatever. But, but in general, I think just being authentic to who I am helps connect me with my community. And that gives me the confidence that, okay, this is being received. So it's something that I should lean into.
Yeah. Yeah. This is so good. So have you always had this desire, like ever since you started blogging? Was it before that you said, I want to be an author one day? Like where did that come from?
There's a small snippet in time when I was like in middle school, and I remember telling like my youth pastor, I want to write a book. And of course I had no idea about what, I don't know. And then if that life happened, I forgot about it. When I started blogging, it was just, it felt like a real, calling on my life, because I was perfectly content in the season that I was in, which was I was a stay-at-home mom. And I think you and I have had a little bit of a conversation about this. I was perfectly fine in that. And then I just really felt like I needed to get out. I needed to help women give themselves grace. I needed to give them easy, simple ways of doing that. And I knew at one point that I would be writing a book. Honestly, when I felt like I would be doing this was about 6 years ago. Then I was like, okay, this is the time to do that. And I knew that I wanted to start blogging. I knew that one day I wanted to do a book. I didn't know when. I didn't know what it was about. And quite honestly, I remember thinking in my head, maybe I'll do like the time between 40 and 50, because I was 40 at the time. And I thought maybe I'll like track, through this blogging experience, what my journey has been in my health between 40 and 50, because we have a lot of changes going on in this decade, and write a book about that. But about 2 years ago, so shortly after I started this podcast, Crystal, and shortly after I met you, I had this fuzzy idea of, well, maybe what about like these rules that we all think that we have to abide by, and writing a book, breaking those? I went to a speaker conference and sat down with an acquisitions agent, and I'm sure there were other people there who had like spent months preparing a 15-minute pitch. And I just sat down and was like, so I have this idea. It was so casual and so not probably what she got. But honestly, and I said, does it have legs? And she said, yeah, it does. Put together a book proposal, send it to me. And I ended up going the self-publishing route, but that's really what jumped me into that. But no, I didn't really know what I wanted to do back when I kind of started this phase 3 of my life 7 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it's important for people to know that, because a lot of people come to me and ask, did you know you always wanted to write a book? Did you know and I'm like, well, I mean, much like you, like, I think I had this vision of like, I would see people's names, printed, go to Barnes and Noble with my mom, because my mom was always a big reader. And anytime we went, I would just look at all of the books and think, wow, like this is really cool that someone has done this with their life. And I think that, as a kid, you see that and you're just like, man, that would be so cool to do that one day. But then also, like you said, it's like, but how does that actually work? Like, where does that fit into the rest of my life? And so I love that you just kind of committed to, I'm just going to make this happen. Was there any specific reason? Like, did something happen on the podcast where you're like, you know what? I think that this is time. Because I would imagine you put yourself in this position to talk to this, book agent or literary agent. And then you're like, oh, maybe I should like pitch this idea. I've been thinking about it. Was there something that like really triggered that for you to say, go for it? Like, go talk to that person.
Being a woman in business comes with its own unique set of challenges, but also so many opportunities. We get ahead by leaning in to what makes us different from business as usual. I'm Samantha Hartley, host of Profitable Joyful Consulting, inviting you to a special 6-episode series exploring the experience of being a woman in business. You want to hear from women consultants who've hit $1 million, who sell 6-figure engagements, or who've broken their own revenue ceilings? Yeah, those are my clients, and they'll be sharing too. Join me for 6 must-listen episodes that tackle key challenges for women consultants.
Follow Profitable Joyful Consulting on your favorite podcast app.
Well, I am always coming up with ideas, like just ideas of things. I have learned that I am a visionary. Now, executing things is a totally different story, but I can visualize things. So I just had that vision so I just thought, well, I'm here and this is someone who's in the industry. She gets it. She knows. And so let me just ask her, and just kind of obviously kept it really casual. Well, that was in November of 2019. So I kind of start tinkering around and maybe writing a little bit here, a little bit there. And then COVID hit. And that was really the time that I just felt like, okay, this is time to dig in. And yes, things were crazy. I was super fortunate because my boys at the time were, at that time, they were 8th grade and 10th grade. So they're now sophomores and seniors, but they were more self-sufficient. Like I didn't have 3 elementary kids at home like you did. And yeah. So,
you laughed a little too hard there. You laughed a little too hard. Like you knew, you understood.
Because my heart hurt for you guys. I mean, that was a lot. That was so much. And I did not have that. So I want to be very, very clear that I was able to do this and jump in and really commit to writing this because I did not have the kinds of stress and pressures and obligations that a lot of people did. So it would, shut down and quarantine impacted people on a lot of different ways. And that doesn't mean I wasn't hit my own way, but in terms of my time management, I was not impacted. I was very privileged in that way because my boys were older and, all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, I would say that really when COVID hit was when I just was like, okay, we're jumping in and we're doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. This is so awesome. And I think that, in learning from different people and how they kind of approach creativity too. Cause I would imagine that you would sit around and say, oh, I'll write a book one day. I'll write a book one day. And then it's all of a sudden you're like, hey, here you have this opportunity. And you just took it and you ran with it. And I mean, and here you are, 12 months later and you have your book published. Like, I think that it's so fantastic. And I really want to get into the tactical aspects of writing your book. So, we've kind of talked back and forth, like I said, behind the scenes about book writing and being an author and, should you go this route or should you go that route? And the question that I have is like, why would you recommend someone embark on something that is the spoken word rather than written word whenever their ultimate goal is to really get a book out? Like that's something that's really interesting to me.
Yeah, it's totally counterintuitive for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of different ways that you can approach that. I mean, one of them is, I think the more you diversify the ways that you put yourself out there, the greater chances you are of figuring out what works and what connects with people. So if you have this little fuzzy idea of a book in your head, you can get on a podcast and talk through it. Yes, you can do that on a blog as well. And I will say, I don't think that there's any time saving in one versus the other. They both just take a lot of time when you kind of go through all of the steps. But it really did help filter out what I was passionate about. And one thing that I learned is I love the education. I never realized that until I kind of got into the podcasting, because it's a lot easier for me to talk through some of the educational aspects than it is for me to write, even though I love writing and I love finding the right words. The other thing too, I mean, I know you love nitty gritty stuff, Crystal, and you've talked a lot about platform building and you've talked a lot about building that email list. I mean, how many episodes have you talked about the importance of your email list? Well, your podcast will reach people in a way that blogs might not. Some people like to read their content and some people like to listen to content. The whole point, or the whole reason I even started a podcast in the first place, was I would get these blogs and I know how much time goes into those blogs, but I would get them and I'd be like, oh, I love what they have to say. This person is so great. And then I would delete it because I didn't want to take the time to read it. I did, though, love connecting with people in my ears. So it was just a different avenue of connecting. Just like some people like to go to Twitter, some people like to go to Instagram, some people like to go to Facebook. This was just a different avenue in which I could connect to potential readers and to people who, were interested in the kinds of things that I had to say. And really too, I think that there's something about the spoken word that can help connect you in a deeper way. They get the tone of the voice. They get the inflections. They get it when you are saying something really angrily, or really softly. And that's a lot harder to do in the written word. You can absolutely do it. But I just felt like the podcasting was a nice complement to the writing process. It didn't necessarily replace it, but I think it was kind of a congruent way of building the community and building a platform, in addition to my monthly newsletters, in addition to like all the things that we've talked about, right? And sending out, I send out an email every time I have a new episode, a long form episode come out. I have 2 different ones, but it's a nice complement to that, even though it is it's kind of, it doesn't make sense, right? Counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Like, well, if you wanted to write a book, why would you start a podcast?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I want to jump straight from that because I do see some of the benefits in having both types of formats down. Because for me, it was so funny because, Amy and I, we've talked about this before, but I have a blogging background as well. But whenever I found myself going to a Google Doc and turning on the dictation so I could voice type my blog post, I'm like, this kind of feels like a podcast. Why wouldn't I just start a podcast? This is so strange to me, but I can absolutely see there's a benefits that overlap podcasting and book writing. So let's talk about some of those.
Yeah. Well, first of all, you taught me about the Google voice type, and that was the biggest game changer that I now tell people. That's one thing that I would do during COVID is I would take my laptop out, pull up Google Docs on Chrome, stick my earbuds in. I'm just walking around outside, just look like I'm talking to the air. I don't know. But yeah, that was huge. And I got so excited about the Google voice type that I forgot the question. I'm so sorry. Can you repeat it?
No, that's fine. That's fine. So just what are some of the benefits that you've experienced on the journey from podcasting to now having a published book?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I have loved about podcasting, and I wish I could do even more, is meeting other people and, interviewing them. So if I want to talk about a topic, I can go research it and I can offer what I have researched. I can also bring on an expert, and that's, mutually beneficial oftentimes. And so this didn't even occur to me when I was doing this, but I started reaching out and really making connections and finding my people of who thought like I did. And you know what those people were really great for is I had a handful of them endorse the book. So I was able to develop working friendships, online friendships. I don't know what you want to call it, but, I was able to develop these relationships with these people. And then when it was time, I said, hey, I've got this thing. Is there any way that you can read it? And if you feel, if you would like to provide an endorsement. So when you are thinking about writing a book, these endorsements are super helpful, whether or not you are self-publishing or traditional publishing, because a traditional publishing and a book proposal, you're going to need to write out some of your potential endorsers. And that is a great way to say, look, I am in this game. I'm not doing this alone in my own little silo, and I have connections, because that can also, all of the different people that you make connections with, those are potential people to help you promote the book when you're done. And then I think, so anyway, that would probably be my biggest one is making those connections for endorsements. Another thing with podcast is because you can see the download numbers. And again, you can see this with blog posts too, and fair disclosure to all of the bloggers out there. But you and I are both on Buzzsprout. And so I can get on Buzzsprout and I can see exactly what's important to my community. One of the things I had learned through the 2 years that I've been doing this is my community loves episodes on mental health. Well, guess what I'm not an expert in? mental health. So I bring in a lot of counselors, a lot of social workers, that kind of stuff to talk about our mental health as it relates to a lot of different ways. But seeing those numbers can really help you identify what might be something that you can explore in a book. And I'm speaking more to nonfiction writers than fiction writers. But even at that, if in that case, if you were wanting to write a fiction novel, you could have a character who's really maybe struggling with their mental health and dig into that and, really develop some richness into that. So I think too, that really helps you identify what is important to the people you're serving. And that can really push it in. And then also for me, I have been able to focus in on what my niche is. And my niche is not niche, whatever, tomato. But mine is not coming in saying, this is absolutely how you need to do it. And this is the best way. But it's like, here are some ways, and let's think about this and figure out what's best for you. And I think that that's something that my community really appreciates. And that's something that I threaded throughout the entire book, because the whole book encourages us to do some critical thinking about, well, why do we think we need to look a certain way? Why do I feel like I need to have this kind of body? Why do I need to feel like I need to work out a full hour? Or why do I think carbs are the enemy? And so we delve into that. But those are things that having the podcast was really helpful in just kind of identifying.
Yeah. This is so good. And you bring up some really awesome points when it comes to, how you can use content in one place to help you realize what's important to your community, and that can help you really hone in on, like, they really want this kind of information. Like, let's tackle that. Because I think that I call it like just paying attention to the breadcrumbs of success. Like, oh, okay. Like, I thought this one episode was going to be really impactful, but oh, I'm surprised. Like, people actually want this type of information. So I think that in looking at those numbers and understanding what's really going on, you can just keep delivering that awesome content. But I have a question, and this might seem a little weird, but I was just thinking, you're talking about networking and talking to other people that you bring onto your own platform. But now that you have your book and it's released, do you think if you were to be a guest on someone else's show, it would be easier for you to do that and talk about this product that you have? Because now you have a book. Like, you could just say, hey, I'm an author. I've created this, because I get pitches all the time from authors. And sometimes it's a good fit for the show and other times it isn't. But for you, as someone who would, potentially go out and promote your book, do you have a different confidence than you did before your book was actually available? Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. I have had a lot of conversations with people about this, and it's a great question. The answer is yes to both. I mean, yes, I have more confidence, and yes, I think it will, I hope, replace that word think. My hope is that it does give my message authority, because I now have something that is tangible. Like, for example, I did get I do get newsletters and that kind of stuff, and I do read them. So I don't want to make it sound, I mean, I read yours. You can see it in your stats, I'm sure. So I actually just today, there was someone who just has had threading of conversations about body image stuff. And I definitely talk about body image in addition to, fitness and nutrition stuff. And I sent an email and I just said, hey, I love what you're doing. May I send you a book? I don't want anything in return. I have to be honest, like, I don't even know if she has a podcast, but I would like to send that to her. And, we'll just see where that goes. There are definitely some podcasters out there who are, quite frankly, they're bigger than I am. I am not a super small show. I'm a very established show, but I'm not huge. And that might be what I need to get my foot into the door to make those connections. Now, let's check back in about 6 months and see if that actually did pan out. But I think too, having something in my hand, I'm going to grab my little author's copy here. I mean, having something in my hand to be like, this is what it is. And hey, if you don't have time, these are the chapters that I think would be really interesting for you to read. And, maybe, I mean, my hope is, yeah. I mean, I don't know because this is so new, but what you're thinking is the same thought process that I have going on. And I hope that it does pan out. I love podcasting and I love being on podcast and making new connections. So we'll just see. That's a TBD, but my hope is yes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's something that I have gotten questions like from other people, or I will get pitches from people and they lead with they are an author of such and such book, but then I'm like, well, this doesn't. That I'm so happy that you published your book. However, that doesn't align with my audience. So I
Right.
think that, for anybody that's listening, you really you can't just say I'm a published author. Now anybody's going to accept me onto their podcast. I think it really goes back to alignment and how, is Amy's message going to align with my audience and vice versa. And I think that you definitely still have to look at that. But I mean, I think that it's such a cool thing, for sure. For you to say you're a podcaster and you're an author, you're just you're packing a lot, girl. You're doing amazing things. And I'm so excited for you because it's just so fun. So I want to go, because I've published my own books. I know what this feeling feels like. And I want you to take all of us to the moment when you got your very first printed copy, even if it's just your author copy. What was that like when you opened up your very first one?
Oh, it's funny you say that. There is a lot that goes on inside internally, right? And I got the box a couple days before Amazon said it would be here, and I remember getting it, and I actually recorded it, and but I thought, I just am not sure that I want to do an official unboxing on social media. That just feels a little too broad for me. And I'm not a huge crier. I cry at Hallmark commercials, but on real things, I don't really cry. So I did. I opened that up and, was talking to the camera, which I wasn't even talking with anyone. And I definitely got emotional. And then I was actually able to, I FaceTime my mom, which she kind of dropped everything that she was doing. And we had a really, really special moment with both of us just boohooing and tears. And because it just, to have it in your hand, I had seen the layout. I had gone through literally months since February, months of editing. But to have it in my hand was very surreal, very surreal.
And that's why I wanted to ask you about it, because I've experienced it and it's different for everybody. And I wanted those of you that are listening and you're thinking about writing a book to just know it's worth it. Number one, it's worth it, because if you're in the thick of it right now, or you're just getting started, you're just oh my gosh, there's a million reasons why I shouldn't do this. We definitely have those in the process. But I think that hearing someone else explain what it's really like, because it is hard work. It is really hard work, especially when you're not sure, I don't know how this is going to go over, but I'm doing this, for all the right reasons and to help your audience. And I think that that's what's so special about what you do, Amy, is you have it in your heart to serve other people and help them have the confidence and be healthy. And your message is it's just so rich. And so it's really cool. Thank you for sharing that moment.
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking. And if I may make a little analogy, because this is what I do, even though my kids hate it. So, in our health, whenever we're taking care of our bodies and taking care of ourselves, everything matters. And I'm not saying it all has to be perfect, but when you drink that cup of water before you have your coffee, that makes a difference. When you add that little extra, 2 or 3 slices of cucumbers, that makes a difference. All of these little things really do make a difference in how your body feels, how it functions, and what you're able to do. And I would say the same thing is if you are wanting to write a book, there's nothing that is not worth it. And so podcasting takes a lot of time and it's a lot of work, but it absolutely enhances and enriches the process and the journey of writing a book. And it, even though it is, hearing and one of them is reading, it's not wasted effort. And I don't think when I started all of this, I didn't even think to put it all together, but it really has made me a better communicator overall, whether it's writing or speaking or anything else.
Yeah, and I hear that a lot, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because I do think I've seen the journey of my own ability to listen to other people and to be a better interviewer and just have better conversations. And I think that podcasting and writing or creating content of any sort, whether it's on video or you're recording yourself unboxing a video, like, and you're just like, I have my books and like all the things, like, I'm sure, all the things that you have done in the past 2 years have really led up to you feeling a lot more comfortable doing those types of things. And, but I do want to go to, did you use your podcast to help you promote your book? Was that something that you knew from the beginning that you wanted to use those two kind of hand in hand?
Well, I have this really great mentor who has a podcast called the Profit Podcast, and I have learned a lot from her. So I actually did go back, and I actually went back and looked at what were your episode titles when you were releasing How to Start a Binge-Worthy Podcast. And so I took a lot of things from you. I launched my book on Thursday, November 4th of 2021. So on Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021, I talked some about the book, and then I read the introduction, which I actually got that idea from you. One of the things that I have in the book is a resource that goes along with, I think, all but maybe 4 chapters. So depending on what I'm trying to communicate, I have different things. I have recipes, I have warm-ups, I have, if I'm telling you don't need to work out a full hour, I give you a 20-minute HIIT workout that you can do. And there's all kinds of different things. So one of the chapters is walking isn't a real workout, which, remember, is a rule to break. And the resource to that is a playlist called Your Worthy Body Walks on Spotify. So I took one of my podcast episodes and just picked like 10 songs that were meaningful to me. Like, the songs, Crystal, like you're driving along, you're like, oh, I love this one. Or it takes you back to a time in college, or it takes you back to something in high school, or it reminds you of a friend. And so I just wanted to bring my readers and my listeners in to why these are meaningful to me. So I definitely used that. Just this past week, in just one portion of one chapter, I talked about how I fiercely guard my Sunday night family dinner ritual. Like this, I say no, like no to friends, no to school projects because you had all weekend to do it and you wasted your time. Like, no. But yes to like, we sit down and we have a dinner together. So I read it was like 2 or 3 paragraphs. And then I said, well, here, if you don't have a family dinner ritual, here's some things to consider. Not like a how-to, but like things to think about. So I'm definitely weaving that. And I do have to be honest, like from a content creation standpoint, boy, it's really nice to be able to take something I've already created. I know you're all about repurposing, and I'm learning about this, but you can take something you've already created and really flesh that out that maybe wouldn't have worked in the book. So like that was just a couple paragraphs, and the whole point, like if I had gone into that, it wouldn't have made sense in that chapter, but it makes sense for me to pull it out and reference it, and people can go listen to it. So I'm definitely using it. I will probably use that strategy several more times in the next few months. And, I mean, and I'm walking that line too, because I don't want, and I know you've talked about this, Crystal, but like, I don't want people to get tired of me because I'm a little tired of myself right now. I was telling you before we got on, like I am in social media hangover right now, and I'm tired of posting things, and I'm having a hard time doing it. So I don't want people to get tired of me, and or more tired of me than they already are. So I'm trying to balance that, and we'll just, sometimes you just gotta go for it and see if it works or not.
Well, I'm so glad that you brought this up, because you did mention that before we started recording. And I was like, oh, we can't forget to talk about this, because I have to tell you from my own experience in launching things, like from a marketing standpoint, when you hit that wall of, oh my gosh, if I have to write one more email, if I have to do one more post, one more recording, one more interview, that's usually the point that your listeners and your audience are just now aware that you're doing anything. Yeah. And that's so frustrating as marketers because we're like, oh my God, I've said it 50 million times. Like, and people are just now hearing it. But the truth is that not everyone will see all of your Instagram posts. Not everyone will see every single one of your emails. Not everyone will hear all of your podcast episodes. So when you're doing a big launch like that, I mean, first of all, like that, you have to understand that in and of itself, launching anything is a big deal. It is a big deal to push something out into the world. So I think that you're just now hitting the point of, like you said, I love the social media hangover. What a great analogy, because that's what it is when you're done launching. But from a marketing standpoint, like I think that just means you did it right. You should be so sick of saying the same thing over and over again. I think that's the way to do it. Now, going into the next year, it's going to be different in how you mention it and talk about it. But I love that you said you could take a snippet of it and go deeper, like tell another story, tell a different story than what you did in the book. But it also allows you to keep plugging your book. So people aren't going to get sick of it. They're going to say, oh my gosh, I've already read Amy's book, but now she's going deeper with it. So I think that there's a lot of potential to still keep creating new pieces of content that are just slightly different. But here I am. I feel like I just went into like a full blown, I put on my
coaching session. No, yes. That's good. You know what's funny, Crystal, is I actually had this idea of doing like honorable mention, like chapter honorable mentions. And I had a list of probably 10 to 20 like things that I wish I could have included in the book, but I didn't. And I lost that list because I'm terrible at organizing all of my stuff. And so I'm just sick that I don't have it anymore. So I wish I could find it, or I'll probably restart it. But yeah, do some of those too. And those I think will be helpful on social media. But you know, I always feel like there's so much I should be doing. And then I have to realize, okay, but what am I actually capable of doing and what makes sense for me? And that's different for other people. Yeah. But you're right. Yeah. I mean, I know what is it? Like 3% of your Instagram followers will actually see your post. And I think it's probably even less than that on a Facebook page now. And it's just, so yeah, you just got to keep doing it. But man, I'm tired of myself.
Well, the good news is that, I mean, when we're recording this, like you are fresh off of your launch, like it happened a week ago. So we get it. Like, I totally get it. I understand. But also I'm just so proud of you. So I want to make sure that everyone knows the title of your book. So I know you've said it a few times kind of in passing, but tell everybody the name of your book.
Yes. Thank you for that. It is called Your Worthy Body. And the subtitle is Find Freedom and Health by Breaking All the Rules. So again, it just takes all of these things that we have heard from social media or the morning shows or those stupid BuzzFeed articles that come across your Apple News, and that of like, you have to do it this way and this is the way to do it. And it breaks a lot of those using exercise science, using nutrition science, and then it's all done through a lens of faith, which is kind of woven in and out. And then it also really delves into, a lot of body image stuff and encourages people to think like, well, why do I think I need to look a certain way? And why do I think that this is the quote ideal body? And helps the reader embrace their uniquely created bodies, and that, and spoiler alert, that we take care of our bodies so we can do what we're called to do, not so it'll look a certain way.
That's great. That's great. Well, I told Amy, I was like, you've been a recurring guest. I mean, I think this is at least your third time to be on the show. And I said, we're going to do the rapid fire questions. And I said, I'm going to change them up a little bit. And she was like, well, I don't even know if I remember what they are. And I said, well, good. Then we're just going to do them and see if you say the same thing that you did in your previous episodes. But I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions and I'm going to tweak them slightly, but are you up for those?
Sure thing. I can't guarantee what I'll answer with, but absolutely. I'll do anything with you, Crystal.
Okay. Well, the first question is, what piece of advice would you give to a brand new podcaster? But I'm going to change it to, what piece of advice would you give to someone who's thinking about writing a book?
Well, just if they are thinking about writing a book, the number one thing that you must do if you want to write a book is you need to write. And you've got to take the time to get your thoughts down. One of my writing mentors is a woman by the name of Kathy Lipp, and she has a great podcast called Writing at the Red House, if you don't mind if I plug that one. And one thing I learned from her is write 500 words a day. And if you have something on your heart, if you get those earbuds in and turn on your Google Type, you can get 500 words in about 20 minutes. This is not like sitting down, and they are crap words. They are terrible words, but you can go back and edit later. They don't need to be perfection. You just need to get everything out. So that's what I would say. If someone's wanting to write a book, I don't remember what the statistic is, but it's something like 80-something% of people say like, yeah, I want to write a book. And everyone has the capability of doing it, and everyone has a story, but the people who have a book actually sat down and wrote and went through that process.
Yeah, this is so good. That's great advice. The second question I have is a two-part question, and it is, what is the dream podcast you would love to be on, and who is your dream podcast guest?
Okay, I do remember this one. Okay, who I would love to be on. I have been listening to two podcasts that I think would be really fun to be on. No pun intended. One of them is That Sounds Fun with Annie F. Downs.
Yes.
And then the other one is The Happy Hour with Jamie Ivey. I just think that I love, what I really love, Crystal, is conversations where we can really dig in. And one of the things that I have really grown into as I've gotten older is just this concept of being curious and asking questions and learning. And maybe we don't agree with about everything, but I like to know your perspective. And so I think that they have pretty thoughtful podcasts, and I would definitely like to do that. Okay, who would I like to have on? I should have put a little bit more thought to that. I mean, I'll say, I would love to have either one of them on. Honestly, I mean, they're fun people. Oh, you know who I would love to have on?
Her whole demeanor just changed. I'm like, what? Who is this person? You just totally changed. Who?
Okay. So this is, depending on the age of your listeners, this is going to be a blast from the past. And you might be just young enough that you missed this person. But do you know who Kathy Smith is?
I don't know who that is off the top of my head.
She is one of the pioneers in the fitness industry. And I think she is between 65 and 70 years old.
Okay.
But she figured out how to take care of your body in a balanced way before that was a thing. Like, she was like, well, I liked doing this. And she was like the aerobics, like thong leotard, 3-inch stretchy.
I'm picturing Jane Fonda right now, like 100%. Yes.
Same concept. Those little bronze tights, yes, that was Kathy Smith. But she's so smart. And I think she has a show that it hasn't been updated, I think, since April of 2019, if I remember correctly. But I would love to get on and talk with her and talk about aging. Because, as someone who's 47 years old, I'm, learning about my body. And I just think that why not learn from the best? And why not learn from someone who's been teaching this kind of stuff forever? So she would be pretty cool to have on.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh, that's great. And Annie F. Downs and Jamie Ivey, like those, we're going to link to those in the show notes because they do. And they both have really amazing voices, like not just in their message, but their actual voices. Like I could listen to Annie F. Downs all day. There's just something about her. She's so sweet and so fun. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. The last question I have is, do you consider yourself a perfectionist?
No. And I remember you asking me that last time, and I said the same thing. No, I used to think I was perfectionist, and I am not, period. I just honestly, but I will say I do tend to overthink things because I will want to work it all out in my head and then try and make it as good as possible. So I definitely get that analysis or paralysis by analysis. But once I actually get in and execute, remember the conversation at the beginning when I'm like, I'm more of a visionary and not much of of someone who executes. When I do get to the I miss things. Thank God for editors. I wish you could see the rest of my desk right now. I mean, it's just a total pit. And like, I'm not, and I have really adopted a principle in all aspects of my life, including my health and my eating and my movement, but 80%. Like, let's just get 80% there, and the rest of the 20%, like, whatever, like we're mostly there. And so that's okay. 80% is going to get us across the finish line.
Oh, this is so, so good. I love hearing that. And I think it's such a good life motto to adopt. I mean, Amy, I just have so much fun whenever I chat with you. Like I said earlier, we have our little voice memos that we do back and forth, and we'll have little messages that pop up. And I'm so happy that your book is out into the world. Y'all go grab it on Amazon and go connect with Amy. Where's the best place that people could connect with you online?
Online, I tend to hang out the most on Instagram, and my handle there is Graced Health, GRACED Health. And then if they want the book, probably I would just say, I mean, I've got a link in my bio on Instagram, or just go up to Amazon and type in Your Worthy Body, Amy Connell. It's 2 N's, 2 L's, and it'll pop up there.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today, Amy, and sharing all about your book experience.
Thank you for having me. And honestly, I really hope that this helps encourage someone else to include that podcasting as part of the journey to writing a book, because it really did enhance it. And I highly recommend it. So thank you for all that you do, Crystal.
Isn't she the best? Oh man, we had such a great conversation before we hit record, and then we talked for several minutes after we were done, because I just love Amy's company so much, and I am so proud of the journey that she's gone on, and I just can't wait to see where she goes from here. The sky is legitimately the limit whenever you are passionate about the message that you have to share. And I just want you to go and grab her book, Your Worthy Body, whether it's something you want to read for yourself or you want to gift it to someone for the holiday season. Please go grab it. You're going to find more information in the show notes. Go to crystalprofit.com/episode 308 to go grab Amy's book, but to also start following her on social media. I love the things that she shares. Go check out her podcast. Graced Health is just such a cool brand, and I love the story behind it. And I encourage you to go listen to the other podcast episodes that I've done with Amy. I'm also going to link to those in the show notes, because I want you to go hear them. Her journey has just been so incredible to watch it all unfold. And I just feel honored that I get to be a small part of it, and I can call her a friend that is actually local here in Houston. We didn't talk about it too much, but Amy and I were lucky enough to get together for a brunch a few weeks ago and to be able to talk about her book before it was actually out into the world, and to see all of it come to fruition. It's such a treat. So congrats again, Amy. I'm so proud of you. Y'all go grab her book right now. Again, the show notes are crystalprofit.com/episode 308. But that's all I have for you today. So if this is your first time tuning in, make sure you hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you're listening to this podcast. And as always, remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere. Hey, Profit Podcast listeners. Thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message, because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you, and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. Go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, "Send Crystal a text message." And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal. It could be totally anonymous, or If you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, send Crystal a text message, and I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of Fan Mail Shoutouts.